Calgary-Edgemont to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand to discuss or to talk about Bill 4. This bill makes a series of amendments, and most of them are aimed at bringing a widely unpopular Alberta Sheriff's Police service one step closer to fruition. It also makes changes to the Disclosure to Protect Against Domestic Violence Act, most commonly known as Clare's Law. Clare's Law allows individuals to find out if their partner has a history of domestic violence, helping them make a more informed choice about their safety. It is an important life-saving tool, one that I fully support, and one that all of us in this chamber should want to strengthen. Which is why it is incredibly mystifying to me that the Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Services has chosen to tie these critical improvements to a bill that's primarily focusing on advancing a costly, unwanted policing experiment. These are two extremely different issues. One is about improving safety for women and families, and the other is about moving forward to a new provincial police force that 80% of Alberta said that they do not want. By combining them, the government is politicizing women's safety. Support for domestic violence prevention is essential, but the support must stand on its own, not to be used as a shield for a policing rollout that Albertans overwhelmingly oppose. For those of you who may not know, Clare's Law came into effect in Alberta in 2021. It allows someone who feels unsafe in their relationship to request information about their partner's history of violence. Police then conduct a threat assessment and assignment a risk level. If there is a high or moderate level of risk, the applicant meets with police in person to hear about the history involved. They aren't allowed to take notes or record the meeting or share information with their family or friends. Bill 4 makes some technical improvements to how that information is shared and how the threat assessments are conducted, which is a very positive in principle. But it does not expand education or support for women who decide to leave. Telling someone they're at risk means very little if there's nowhere safe for them to go. And the need for this could not be more serious. In 2024, Alberta recorded 17 femicides, with most linked to intimate partner violence. So while these improvements in Clare's Law are important, they can't be used as a substitute for investments in prevention, counselling, shelters. We don't need to look far to see why stronger, better resourced domestic violence prevention matters. A little over 3 months ago, 23-year-old Madison Cobb was killed in Calgary. She had done everything women are told to do. She had 3 court orders in place to keep her abuser away. She went to the police. She followed the process. And still, she was murdered by her abuser. Madison's case shows what happens when our system focuses on paper protections without the funding and the coordination that turns those protections into meaningful actions. Restraining orders and information sharing can only go so far if there are no supports behind them. Supports like safe housing, consistent enforcement, and follow-up. This is why tying Clare's Law to a policing rebrand experiment misses the point. Women like Madison don't need more bureaucracy. They need a system that is funded to act when threats are known. They need shelters with rooms to take them in, trained officers who understand coercive control, and community programs that work with perpetrators before violence escalates. They need school programs that don't require an opt-in form to learn about healthy relationships. They need teachers to be in those classrooms, helping young youth learn about respect and what boundaries look like. When a woman can have 3 restraining orders and still be murdered, that is a failure of policy. If this government truly wants to honor women like Madison Cobb, it would fund the supports that save lives instead of spending billions on a police force that Albertans don't want. Mr. Speaker, this bill, like so many from this government, is about choice. This government is choosing to spend $1.3 billion on a provincial police transition to forfeit another $170 million a year in federal funding. That's more than $2 billion over 6 years. That's money Alberta will never get back. And imagine what that could do instead. It could fund Fears Not Love's Men and program, a program proven to reduce violence by working directly with men who want to change their behaviour. It could restore the funding for Indigenous-led safety initiatives like the Circle of Safety, which recently lost its funding halfway through the year, despite its success. It supports women and families in rural and remote communities. When survivors of domestic violence can't find or afford a safe place to live, they're far more likely to stay in or return to dangerous situations. With $2 billion, this government could build or refurbish more than 7,000 units of affordable housing. It could stabilize funding for domestic violence shelters so that they aren't forced to operate grant to grant and turn women away when beds are full. It could also support education, one of the most effective long-term violence prevention tools we have. Schools are a big part of where children learn about boundaries, empathy, and healthy relationships. Well-funded schools give young people stability, role models, and opportunity, all of which are proven predictors of low crime rates and healthier communities. When we underfund classrooms, we underfund prevention. Mr. Speaker, these are real public safety investments Alberta needs. When this government says they can't afford these things, but they can afford a provincial police service, that's a choice. Public safety doesn't come from rebranding police. It comes from addressing the conditions that make people unsafe in the first place. Violence, poverty, housing, mental health are all intertwined with public safety. You can't separate them, and you can't solve them by pushing one step forward with an unwanted Alberta Sheriff's Police Service. Safety is about security and stability, knowing that you can afford rent, access health care, and send your kids to school without worry. Knowing that you can ask for help. There will be someone there, somewhere safe to go, someone trained to listen, and a system that acts. Bill 4 could have been a chance to invest in that kind of safety, to expand Clare's Law, stabilize shelter funding, to invest in prevention. Instead, it ties a vital tool for protecting women to a policing project that Albertans have been very clear that they don't want and they don't need. If this government truly cared about protecting women, it would start by funding the programs that already work and not hide them behind this very costly experiment.
Hear, hear.